I spent quite a while trying to figure out how to make a video on this topic without sounding like I'm, well, belittling newer players, especially with this game having just been on sale for quite a while. It's gotten a lot of these newer players, and, well, frankly a lot of them struggle with a lot of what seems to a lot of better players pretty basic stuff, like line choice. A lot of which can actually apply across from something like Forza. It's Wreckfest. The driving is different to other driving games. Your newer players will tend to get lapped and then rage quit or something because they tried to crash the person who lapped them out, and well, even that didn't work. Bottom line is they suck. If you can relate to this feeling, this video is probably for you. If not, well, I guess it's a guide to getting a top 200 lap time on the Hill Street circuit, or just confirming that you're on the right track, if you'll excuse the pun. Driving in semi-clean rooms, which is what I'm going to focus on covering, is possibly one of the most difficult settings you'll find yourself in. You'll probably be able to keep up for the first few turns, sometimes even stay with the majority of the pack for the whole race, but I want you top 10 often, at least half of the time. If you're under 100 hours in the game, it's unlikely that you have the raw experience to know every track, or even to have played every track. This video won't help that. If you are one of those players, I would highly recommend avoiding online until you can consistently beat the hardest difficulty AI in the campaigns. Not only will this get you some experience, it'll also teach you a little bit of line choice and generally where cars are going to be on the track for what they're going to try. But what's line choice if your car's tuned wrong and upgraded badly? So we'll start there. So, excuse me if I'm speaking a little bit more softly than average, in fact. There you go. Now I'll sound a little bit more clear. So, typically in Wreckfest, the upgrades and tuning that you use depend more on the server you're in than anything else. Of course, different cars will be tuned differently. We'll be covering what I'm going to refer to as PowerHouses. These are cars like the Super Venom, the Roadslayer that you see up here, and the Speedbird that you see in the upgrades here. These kind of cars typically are incredibly powerful. They'll out-accelerate on straights most cars, but they will lack, how can we put this, an ability to corner. We'll go to our upgrades real quick. You'll see that this has nearly 6.0 cornering. That doesn't mean much. This car can actually corner quite well, but it only corners well because it doesn't grip very well. And I'll be the first person to tell you weaknesses in the Super Venom. It does corner terribly, there's no two ways about it, but thankfully it's got a very easy to control slide, so you can get it in the right direction and just give it a boot full of power and it'll just leave. So, of course, we're going to go to our upgrades. Now, our upgrades are, of course, we're going to keep the car at 164. We're also going to want to run different armor setups depending on what server we're in. You could run something like this if you're in a very dirty server. I'm in a server with no rules, but you know what? I'm going to run this kind of upgrades because, well, I'm lazy and I don't want to have to upgrade the car. Also, you know, driving well, not crashing means that if your car's lighter, it'll corner better. And if I'm driving well, then I won't have to worry about crashing into people because, you know, I'm driving well. To our tuning. So this is the kind of tuning that I would usually run. 2 suspension, 4 gears, 5 differential, and 1 brakes. Differential and brake balance should always be left here. These are the only 2 that you're ever going to want to change depending on the track. Now for the track that we're going to be racing on, which is going to be Hill Street, not Hill Street, Clay Ridge, you're going to want to run softer suspension. We may even run one suspension here. Everywhere where you get an opportunity to make good speed is incredibly bumpy, and having the longer suspension allows our wheels to stay on the ground more, and it will also allow our car to put down the power in its wheels more effectively in the straights. It will also allow us to corner slightly more effectively on incredibly bumpy terrain. Gear ratio, typically, so I've heard that quite a lot of the better drivers in the game, in the Super Venom will use this type of tuning. I don't understand why. Your car, in my opinion, rolls too much, and then you lack acceleration with the tuning set, with your gear ratio set to being so short. Of course, you do get incredibly quick shifts out of corners, and you can short shift very easily to get a lot of power rates. We're going to keep our gear ratio long though. I can only recommend that you mess around with the different gear ratios and find what works for you. I'm not the same driver as you will have a different driving style to me. One of the difficult things about teaching newer players how to be good at Wreckfest is one video like this will not make you good. Even amongst 3 different drivers, the things that new drivers, that is, the things that they do, or even experienced drivers, the things they do are completely different. I guess would be a good example comparing to most other good drivers. If you can call me good, I'm really fucking inconsistent. Yeah, I know you've seen lots of, well, my channel's just full of videos of me doing good, but don't worry, I fuck up more than half of my races with silly little mistakes like braking like half a second too late for a corner and ploughing into a wall because I'm a fucking idiot. Whatever. Our gear ratio we're going to keep long. Our suspension we're going to leave soft, we'll keep it at standard. Differential locked, brake balance to the rear. That's the best for the Super Venom, in my opinion. Differential being fully locked is probably worth paying a bit more attention to your difficulty setting. Newer players will have half, which what I mean by that is half ABS and in order. Half ABS, half traction control, and half stability control. And probably an automatic gearbox as well. The automatic gearbox isn't a problem. You can, as a newer player, it's worth doing this actually, shift down. So figure out what your shift down button is on your controller or keyboard and start using it as you're cornering. This will teach you some, how do we put it? This will teach you some gear shifting methods and how to get a little bit more power out of your car in different corners. Of course, you don't want to shift down too much by accident, and sometimes the automatic gearbox, you'll shift down and it'll shift back up, and then the engine will start to bog down, so you have to shift back down again. It happens, there's not much you can do about it. So I would recommend half anti-lock brakes, half ABS, half stability control, and no traction control. So ABS half, TCS off, stability control half. And then, well, I use clutch manual because, as you'll see when I shift up, I get a boost of about 2 or 3 miles an hour. So let's go over to a couple of other cars and we'll see how we tune them up. So, the Roadslayer, another example of a very powerful car that corners poorly. This is the tuning that I've got set up for it. This is the tuning that I'm going to recommend. Dropping the gear ratio down in this car, what with you only having 4 gears, means that a lot of the time you'll actually find the engine topping out in gear 4. I think this is only good for about 105 miles an hour or something. Having your gears so you never top out is something I would strongly recommend you do. For longer tracks, keeping your gear ratio at around 5 is worth it. Let's go over to the Speedbird and we'll see what that's set up as. So, the Speedbird. We can see that we're running no armour at all on it, as it's a custom for me, and we're tuned like this. So, completely stiff suspension. I'd probably suggest for most tracks that you run 3. For your gear ratio, again got it at about 5.3. If we run it too short, we'll be topping out very easily. If we run it too long, the engine will start to bog down. It's worth noting that with the Super Venom, I run the gears long. You don't seem to get the bogging down problem that I'm mentioning anywhere near as much in the Super Venom. It just seems to have the torque. You can press toggle info. On the keyboard it's backspace. This will tell you what your power, torque and weight is, and how many gears you've got also if you've never driven the car before. Now, your power and torque figure, this is basically your optimum power area, your power band, if you will. Although, I'm not sure that's the right terminology. So when we're shifting up to come out of a corner, we want to have our RPM around 4,800 or between 3,200 and 4,800. When we're cornering, we want to keep it at 4,800 to ensure that we have the best power possible to make our corner as quick as possible. Don't actively corner harder to slow your revs down. You want to be taking the flowiest lines possible. Anyway, I've been rambling on way too long now. Let's get into the race. So, we've come in a little bit wide. Being stuck on the far left or far right hand side of the track is typically quite bad as a starting position, especially in the server I'm in at the moment, which is basically no rules. As far as I'm aware, anything goes. Now, that's fine. If anything goes, that means I can do anything to anybody else. I don't think I actually crash anybody out this game, because driving quick is better than crashing people out. But we're going to come in, we're going to see if we can push this rammer over to the left-hand side, to the right-hand side of the track a bit more. Ideally, we will push him across, avoid this tyre wall, and continue up the far right-hand side of the track, where we're going to have to brake very early and cut inside of every other player before they go barreling up the hill and all crash. Typically the people in first brake quite well for this, but the people in, well, every other position tend to just not brake. But that didn't work, did it? He saw me coming in on his left and moved right, and I bounced off of him. We're going to have a little crash here. We're going to reset and keep going. So, we may seem to be in a pretty shitty position right here. Don't let the 24 of 24 in the top left corner fool you though. This is actually a good position to be in. Obviously, it's not a good position to be in, but let me explain to you why it is. In last, we're going to have an opportunity that no other player is going to have, at that with next players 3 seconds ahead. The opportunity that we're going to get is some real estate to gain a bit of momentum. A lot of players are going to be focused on fighting with other players, especially in the first couple of corners. The first 30 or 40 seconds are normally the most aggressive that you see in a race. We're going to take advantage of that as best we can, and we're going to get as much momentum up as possible, and we're going to get into the flow of things, and hopefully will pass a load of players. Coming up to the first corner, we haven't got anywhere near as much speed as we normally would, so we'll brake when we get to the top of the hill. What braking when we get just before the top of the hill will do is push our front wheels down because our brake bias is set really far to the rear. This will give us better steering, and it'll also act to help the decompression on the suspension when we're coming up the hill. Notice how we use all of the track when we come out almost off of the track wide. This will give us better momentum than the car in front of us, and the two cars ahead of him are busy fighting each other. There also appears to be something else further up the track, but I didn't see this at this point, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, we come to the top of this hill and I can count 1, 2, 3, 4 cars. We can't see 4 cars, 5 including me. We can't see 4 cars because one of them is hidden in front of the car that we're pushing up the hill at the moment. This car, I don't know where he came from. I think he's probably reset. I haven't seen him before. Maybe it was the car that we saw beforehand, the one that I mentioned that I didn't see the corner before and we're going wide. We're going to take bank on this and we're going to see if we can push Murray into all of these drivers, either causing a crash or giving us a reason to pass. That worked out just fine. We got ahead of all 3 of them. There's still one more in front of us. He appears to be taking the right-hand route on this split here. I don't know which way's faster to go here on this rotation around the track. I think left is faster, but it is hard to do. You do come out with more speed as well. Having a look further up the track, we can see, on the minimap that is, we can see that there's been a bit of a crash. That's fine, I'm not too fussed about that, we'll get around it. More importantly though, the player ahead of us has started braking incredibly late. I'm not too worried about him because of this. It tells me a couple of things, mainly that he's not going to be too much of a threat. Well, he didn't crash like I thought he was gonna. I think we're gonna give him a helping hand. Ideally, we want him to go right and we can go left to make a repeat of what happened with the green car earlier. You'll notice that a theme starts to occur where we do this a lot. I figure after this person, that it's probably the fastest thing to do. If I have a car in front of me, get them here, who's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing in the world to pass, that is. Get them here and then just push them to the right and take a left route. Also pay attention to our line choice coming into this corner. We do a pretty decent job of transferring the weight at the right time. We have the high ground, as it were. From here, I can see every single car we're going to have to overtake. The blue car on the left is probably going pretty slowly now after that little crash. The car in front of me, the black one, appears to be the same car that we tried to push off of the track. Whether or not he'll remember this, I don't know. Well, not push off the track, tried to push into to stay on the track. Whether or not he'll remember this, I don't know. We want to get past them as quickly as possible. I can also see a gremlin down there and a hearse. those are normally recipes for disaster. Well, it's a different rammer to the one we tried to push into the middle of the track, first corner, so you probably won't remember what happened. We're going to try and force our way through the inside of everybody, coming up to this corner. I'm the widest person coming in, and I think I should be able to hold a lot more speed, especially if I can get on the inside of this rammer. I can use him to push anyone on his left wider, and if it's only him, it'll speed me up coming around the corner. That seemed to work out pretty well. We're going to get away from this rammer as soon as possible. We've been very aggressive with him, and it's possible that he'll just try and spin us out immediately. This is why you take the lines that make more sense to, you know, getting around the track rather than just following other people and crashing people out. Because, you know, it's worked out better for me and the two people ahead and also the person behind me over this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people who have now crashed. I guess they're having what you could call fun, but, you know, and winning. Okay, so the yellow tristar takes the wrong route. He's not going to be a problem for very long. The red rocket we're coming up to, he might be a problem. Judging by the speed that I've been approaching him at, he's probably not fully upgraded yet. He's probably on his first couple of hours in the game, to be honest. We're going to try and just cart behind him and go past as quickly as possible. We're probably going to meet by the time that the two splitting sections of this track meet.
Fuck! Oh!
That tristar was quicker than I was expecting, to be honest. He's still ahead of us. That's fine. We are going to have a better line than him through this, I reckon. We're just going to continue making a smoother turn as we can around this corner. Notice how I don't at any point actually straighten up, even though it might seem to give me better acceleration to do it now. If we continue making one smooth turn, when we're actually coming out onto the straight, even though it's a bumpy one, we'll be getting a bit more speed. Shifting up before we cross the line would have been a good idea. If I'd have done it, I could have possibly cut a little bit of time off this track, to be honest. Line choice makes a lot more difference than making a tiny little perfect shift once as you cross the line. It's whatever. We're coming up to another car now. We can see him far on the inside there. Him being on the inside doesn't really worry me too much. Tells me that his lines probably aren't too great. Most players, or at least most fast players, will be on the outside, because you can basically turn this whole straight here into one line without having to make any turns. My line coming out of first corner there was almost perfect. My lines coming up here next are also pretty good. I almost get a PB here even. So pay some attention. I think it's top 500 lap time I do here. Notice how I'm going outside, inside, outside, and how I transfer the weight as efficiently as possible. I'm looking at this position now. What I'm looking at is the direction his wheels are facing. the way that I'm going to steer is going to send me in this direction. The way that he's going to try and steer will cut him across in roughly this direction. That's going to lead to some problems. Well, that little bump went about as well as it could have gone, to be honest. He went right, I went left, we didn't crash each other out, all is well in the world. Pay attention to how we're, again, cutting as far inside as possible, and then we're going to straighten up and just shoot straight down here, gaining as much speed as possible. We should come past Jaded, no problem. He might pop out in front of us, the same will happen as did with the last person we overtook. Well, I hope this has come in handy. I know the Super Venom is kind of the most powerful car in the game, and it doesn't really compare to any of the other, shall we say, powerhouses in the game, but I hope this comes to some use. Next one I'll be doing will be on more agile cars like the raiden, tristar and such. Go over basic choice and such with them, how to make up the lack of acceleration in the corners. I'll play the race back for you in real time so you can see everything happen at once as usual. Thank you for watching.
Introducing Microsoft Surface Laptop Go. It's thin, light, fast, and available in 3 beautiful colors. Starting from £549, Microsoft Surface Laptop Go turns any place into your